Royal Canadian Geographical Society, we set off deep into the northern wilderness to explore rivers so remote that never been explored before or even named.
8 o'clock. We had some rough waves, but we've made it to the canyon. Now we're looking at our second day on our expedition to explore the Nameless River deep in the Hudson's Bay lowlands. We're just cooking a breakfast of oatmeal. It's a nice sunny day. We encountered our first difficulties. I had a thumb injury, cut my thumb on the canoe, cost me a bit of pain.
Our first major challenge was scaling the steep canyon with sheer rock cliffs. When we reached the summit, we discovered several eagle nests.
You can see it's really just sheer rock cliff, which is extremely unusual for the Hudson's Bay lowlands, which is generally very flat. And then behind me here is we're setting out into Sutton Lake, paddling hard. As you can see, our canoe is heavily laden. Right up there on the shore of the Sutton River is the Beaver Lodge. We're just drifting downriver right now. Coming across a large sand bank along the Sutton River here. We're trapped here on the shore of the Sutton River in a thunder and lightning storm that just came up quick. We just thrown our 7 of our expedition. How do you feel, Brent?
I'm very cold. I'm very, very tired.
Very cold, very tired. Okay, open treeless tundra. Well, there goes Brent in the plane, and now I'm all alone in the Canadian wilderness. Completely. My expedition partner, he called in the plane to get him out of here. He decided the conditions were just too tough, too difficult, and he could not go on any longer. Upriver, against the current, it's going to be very difficult work, wading, paddling against the flow of the river to go explore this nameless. Here I am waiting with my canoe up the river, freezing cold water on the tundra, and I think I just saw a polar bear wander past me to my left over there somewhere out on the tundra. Well, here I am at the end of day 13. It was another hard day of fighting my way upriver against that swift current. And I've made a camp here. I'll give you a tour. I'll momentarily forgo the bug net for your sake. So I got my tent set up in there. The pole's broken, that's why it looks somewhat misshapen. And I got the tarp over top just in case it rains. It did rain a little bit earlier today. My food's over there behind me. This is my insurance plan against bears. There are 2 types of bears where I am. There's polar bears. They're more towards the coast, and there's black bears. So I've got this Winchester Defender shotgun just in case the worst happens. Although I also have a non-lethal deterrent for bears, which I hope works well enough. It's this air horn, so I'm hoping it'll just scare them away and I won't have to shoot anything. That would be the last thing I'd want to do. Over here, let's see what we got. This is my reading literature for the trip. And like all around my camp, there are edible things. Right here, this little plant is Labrador tea, which you can make a good tea out of, traditional woodsman's drink. Then right beside the Labrador tea, actually these are gooseberries, which are edible. And then right down beside the gooseberries, Labrador tea, gooseberries, we have what are called crowberries, which are these little berries down here. There's one, which are also edible. Which I injured on the first day of this expedition. Actually seems to be getting worse rather than better. There's still that piece of flesh near the nail hanging out. And now, I don't know if you can see it, but I think it's actually turning green. There's like a green line going around it. We've got lots of wild edibles in the vicinity, growing down right here near my tent somewhere. Oh, look, right there is a couple of wild strawberries, which are great. We've also got trout, which I just caught in the river. This is a brook trout, or speckled trout as it's known, and makes great eating. So fish has really been supplementing my diet. Morning of day 14, day 5 on my own since my expedition partner left me. And last night there was a huge thunder and lightning storm. The winds pretty much destroyed my tent. This heap that you see behind me here is all that's left. Pile rocks to keep the whole thing from blowing away in the storm. And well, I've made it to the meeting of the waters, so to speak, the junction of the Sutton River, which is on the right there, with the Aquatuck River. This is where the two rivers meet, and then from here they journey together out to Hudson's Bay in the Arctic Ocean. I head into the unknown. It's really beautiful, although there was some thunder and rain earlier, but you can see it's very pretty, very remote, pristine wilderness. The hole of some type of animal. Morning on the 15th day here, and it's cold, wet weather. But I did make an interesting discovery behind me. This big spruce tree that you see, big by the standards of the northern boreal forest that is probably a couple hundred years old, at least 2 centuries. The good news is I have successfully made it to the nameless, unexplored river, which is right behind me here. It's not very large, but this is where it joins the Aquatuck here. But I'm heading completely into the unknown, up this unexplored, unnamed river. Thinking in my mind right now some good names, potentially, to call the river. It's trickier than you would think. Unfortunately, there's a law against naming things after living people or yourself, so I can't name it the Shoalts River, which I suppose is too bad. But I'll come up with some suitable name, I'm sure. Hard work and slow going. Rigged up for a rainy day and night, and the good news is that I basically have fixed my tent now. I used a spruce branch, which is quite bendy, flexible, and I lashed that with some handy old duct tape to the tent there, so that's basically fixed. I got a pot of water there for when I feel up for it. I'll make a fire, cook dinner, but right now I'm soaking wet, so I'm going to go inside my tent and lie down and rest, because that's hard work dragging the canoe through that cold water against the current all day. Behind me here is a stream or a creek flowing into my nameless river. See, it joins with it right here, and then they both flow out that way. The nameless river really widens out almost into like a little pond, but still quite deep here, as you can see, but it's getting smaller. Lots of rocks and things sticking up in it. Well, I got my camp all set up here, got a good fire going. About to cook some dinner, craft dinner again. Tent, tarp set up. Nameless river behind me. I've been exploring it these last several days, so I'll keep exploring it for several more days. The river here meanders, that is, it snakes or winds so much that It's actually on either side of me right here, no more than about 20 feet apart. So if you look through the trees here, you can see the river down there flowing along, and it curves, and it's right over there. So this is one huge bend, and as you can imagine, it's a lot of hard work coming up against the current, winding around. As I'm preparing for go lie down in my tent for the night, I was moving my food away from my camp, safe distance. I found some bones here. Looks like either, I think, a moose, but most likely a moose. Well, it's another rainy day, which is becoming typical out here. Sort of cool weather. And I've finished my exploration up the river, which means, hooray, that I can start heading downriver with the current. In spite of the wet weather and all the rain, I've got a good fire going, and I can begin to make some tea or hot chocolate to get myself warmed up, because it was, you know, a cold, wet day, and I don't want to get hypothermia, which is probably the #1 killer in the wilderness. It's day 20 of the expedition, and it's been a very cold, wet, windy day. This is the subarctic. Temperatures can drop to about 3 degrees Celsius, you know, just a little above freezing. And then when you're soaking wet, it's conditions where you will get hypothermia for sure, which is why it's important to make fires and keep it in an extra pair of dry clothes. But because of all the rain we've had, it's rained steady. I feel like I'm back in the Amazon, which I just got back from about a month and a half ago, by the way. Just saw a huge polar bear on shore, so I've got my shotgun out. Of course, I would never actually want to shoot a polar bear, but it is a precaution. Huge polar bear in the river right there. Nerves are pretty shaky. It's making some noise. I just had for sure what was one of the scariest moments of my life. A close encounter with a polar bear that was making indications of an attack. Started breathing and sucking in air, which is what they usually do before charging. The bear was in the river, and the river's very shallow here. You can see with my paddle, it's only a couple feet deep. And I was coming down in the canoe, and I had to pass the bear at some point in order to get where I'm heading to, which is the pickup place where the float plane is going to fly in tomorrow and pick me up to end the expedition. And I just saw a bear earlier. This is the second polar bear I'd seen. It was in the river, just massive. The largest land carnivore on Earth. Started making noise. It was about 40 feet from me. The river very shallow. It stood up, stared at me, started making noises. I got my shotgun out, loaded a shell, and it got to the point where I actually had the safety off, and I was looking down the barrel with my finger on the trigger, preparing to fire. I did not want to fire. The bear looked like it was going to attack, and I can tell you I was shaking. I'm still a little shaky. I'm still looking behind me because you can actually see the bear still in the distance there.